Disclaimer, I am kinda sick while recording this video, so my voice sounds a little like sandpaper, but nevertheless, enjoy the video. And yes, in this video there are tons of spoilers, so disclaimer, spoiler warning, even in the intro there are spoilers, so click off the video now if you don't want to get spoiled. Elden Ring. I mean, when everyone told me that this is the most anticipated game of 2022, I thought that they were joking, like how Genshin Impact won the Player Choice Awards at the Game Awards, and like how Diablo Immortal was
an out-of-season April Fool's joke.
Because I never really played any of the other Souls games, so my initial thoughts when I saw the trailers were like, okay, the cinematic is cool. I mean, the art style is amazing, but the graphics and details in the shaders are kinda and the combat looks kinda slow, but I don't know. A few months later, and this is when I played my first Souls game, that is Bloodborne. Let me tell you, I had a blast. I want to review that game in the future, so stay tuned, but I finally understood why everyone liked these games so much. The combat is not the fastest in the world, but it is amazing. You can't parry attacks and go on in your life, no. If you do that, you get demolished within seconds. And if that happens, a rage quit is guaranteed. But I'm beginning to ramble on, so let's get on to the review. But before I go on, this is Elden Ring. So what is Elden Ring? Elden Ring was made by a company called FromSoftware. If you don't know FromSoft, they are known for their work on Demon's Souls, the Dark Souls trilogy, Bloodborne and Sekiro. So, except for Dark Souls 2, they only really made good to exceptional games. The director Hidetaka Miyazaki is known for his imagination and world building. One of the great minds of the gaming industry, as he's so often called. Worked on this game for over 4 years. With the last few years having unfinished game releases, some people were a little bit concerned if Elden Ring would live up to the hype. And if they would rush it to please their audience, because some games like Cyberpunk did it and it didn't go well. So naturally people were a little concerned, but a lot of FromSoft fans knew that they wouldn't deliver something that was half done. They knew that they would only go for perfection, and so they did. Even though the release didn't go as smoothly as it could have gone, it had by far a way better release than all the other games that came out years past. Elden Ring is very different if you compare it to the other Souls games. The other Souls games were very linear. You had a path you walked on, and eventually you find the boss and then you beat him to get to the other stage. Of course there was some exploration, but it wasn't as large as Elden Ring has, of course, because Elden Ring has a full-fledged open world, which we'll talk about later. But first off, I want to talk about the art style and not the graphics. The graphics will come later. The art style in Elden Ring, I've never seen something like this and that just blew me away instantly. When I walked through the doors of Limgrave, I was blown away. I saw the large golden tree, I saw the castle in the distance. It was just mind-boggling. There's so much care and hard work put into this beautiful world. Every biome has his own enemy types and his own theme of enemies, like Liurnia, that is largely a mossy kind of area, so you have a lot of enemies that would fit in that biome, like lobsters. I didn't really have a good time with those lobsters, but they fit the area that they were spawned in. Or the mangled creatures that live in Caelid. Those things make the world more believable and gives a larger impact on the art style it's going for. The graphics, on the other hand, isn't really next gen. It is more like last gen, the PS4 era. I played Elden Ring on the PS5 and the frame rate wasn't very stable. Maybe, I don't know, I'm kinda confused with that because God of War Ragnarok ran at a smooth 60 FPS and it had way more details than Elden Ring. I don't know, maybe someone can help me in the comments, but it seems to me that it wasn't very well optimized. It looks better than every other Souls game except Demon's Souls, but that wasn't really made by FromSoft. But the art style compensates for all this and makes it so beautiful to look at, even though the details aren't that sharp. So on the graphics department, in conclusion, it's very good. I mean, the graphics itself isn't very sharp, but the art style, it compensates for it so well that you don't even notice it half of the time. Maybe if you look at a statue for way too long, you can notice it, but nobody does that. So when you traverse the world of Elden Ring, prepare to have your mind blown. Well, let's talk about the combat now. This is where I'm gonna get a lot of hate because I don't think it's perfect. I don't think it's really good. I heard a lot of people praising its combat and saying it's the best combat in gaming industry. I don't think so. I think it's too slow. I think that you can't cancel any attacks makes it a little bit tedious, but I get that's the point of the game, so I'm not bashing it for that. I like other combat systems more, that's the only thing I'm saying. Its combat is still very good, even though it's simple and slow, it's still very good. I prefer something like God of War's combat because it's a little bit more fast and you can combo a little bit. But Elden Ring does the job for what Elden Ring is supposed to do. And what Elden Ring is supposed to do is give you a challenging experience that is fair and beatable. A lot of people have problems with the later bosses like Melania, Malekith, or even the Elden Beast, which I had a lot of problems with. But each of these bosses are just beatable by a little bit of strategy. Melania is very easy if you just use a mimic that can stun her a little. I used a mimic that had a Rivers of Blood on him. So when he did a Rivers of Blood magic, she got stunned so I could attack her. Even when she did the Beyblade attack, she still targeted the mimic that had a lot of HP and just could have tanked it. You may say that using a mimic is cheating and is kind of cheap. It's in the game, so it's supposed to be used. People that say that you're a pussy for using a mimic or a summon are just dumb. I haven't used magic yet, but so I can't talk about that. But the melee builds that I have used are like Bleed and Faith and Arcane. Arcane is very fun. Arcane, you can use a lot of magic attacks, like the weapon you get from Rykard after you beat him. If you use the magic attack on Rykard's sword, you slam the sword on the ground, and right in front of you there is like a line of fire explosions coming from under the ground. Almost all of the main bosses are really good, almost perfect. Except for a few, because I'm gonna talk about them right now. That is one, the Godskin duo. Not just because they are very hard, harder than any boss I have encountered in the game. They are hard for the wrong reasons. It's just a duo fight, so we already had the Godskin Noble and the Godskin Apostle, and those two combined make a hell. I mean, it's just a bad design. Not even do you beat them once, you need to beat them twice, both of them. So I don't like that boss fight. I don't like Melania too much. She wasn't really hard, but the one attack that she did that was OP, I don't know what it's called from the top of my head. It's just a cheap trick to make you die. You encounter some bosses later on that you recognize. Those bosses are just copy pasted from the previous boss fights that look alike. They're just reskins or just literally copy pastes. So that's one of the cons of the boss fights, but overall there are so many original good boss fights that I will forgive every one of those. To say that the most of the boss designs are just phenomenal is putting it lightly. Well, let's talk about the open world now. I can only say good things about the open world when I'm talking about Limgrave. Limgrave is just the easiest and best designed open world space you can imagine. It leads you to the interesting places, it leads you to the main story points, the main bosses, really well. And yes, I'm saying really a lot because I'm not the best at English. There's not a lot to say about the open world except that it's really large and that it's easy to traverse. Oh man, what would I do without Torrent? The only place that I don't like is the mountains of the Giants and Caelid, because those places are just horrid. Luckily you don't go to those places a lot and it's easily avoided. You don't have to go to Caelid to progress through the game, but you do want to fight Radahn. He's one of the coolest fights in the game. I'm just briefly gonna talk about the story, otherwise this video is gonna be 2 hours long. So the story you don't really get in the game. It's more than the other Souls games, I will tell you that. But you don't get it a lot. It's not a narrative you can easily follow. You get it out of item descriptions and kind of the things that they say you need to decipher. If you want to know more of the story, you should watch some videos that Vati made or some other videos that other YouTubers made, because they explain it in a way that is far easier to follow. But when you understand the story, god damn, it's good. I don't like the fact that I'd have to do a lot of effort to understand the story, but when I do understand the story, it's amazing. It's top notch. It's one of the best writing I've seen in a long time. In the future, they could make it a little bit less obscure, but this is good enough. I mean, if I watch some videos, I'm not gonna hate on it. I'm not someone that really wants to do a lot of effort to understand a story. Just feed it to me like I'm a baby. But I know that hardcore Souls fans will hate that idea and just rebel against it. I should also mention that this game was co-written by George R.R. Martin, who made, if you don't know, Game of Thrones. But it's not told like Game of Thrones. So Game of Thrones fans, if you expect a Game of Thrones game out of this, you're gonna be disappointed. But overall, I love the story of Elden Ring. I just don't want to talk about it because it's very obscure and I still don't understand all of it. Well, in conclusion, I mean, this game is amazing. I can't say anything else than amazing. It's not a perfect game. I still prefer Bloodborne over this, or something like God of War over this, but it is a phenomenal game and I won't dispute anything. It deserved the Game of the Year. I'm not saying that I didn't want God of War Ragnarok to win, but on paper this game is better. I did vote for God of War, so don't get all too angry with me, all the God of War fans. But my final verdict for this one in a lifetime game is a 9 out of 10. It's not perfect. I mean, 10 out of 10 in my opinion is still not perfect. There are some games that I consider 10 out of 10 games, so I will be talking about those too, so stay tuned. I recommend this game so much. It is one of the best games I've played in a long time. It is without a doubt a 9 out of 10 and I want everybody to play this at least one time. But that's all for today and I'll see you next time.